Have you ever had one of those days where a single bad moment just spirals? It turns into a whole afternoon or even a whole week of just feeling awful? Well, today we're going to dig into a really powerful idea from some ancient texts that explains exactly why that happens. And more importantly, what you can do about it. It's all about something called the second dart.
So let's just dive right in with a huge question, one that gets right to the core of this. We all know that pain is a part of life, right? It's going to happen. But what about suffering? Is that also just a given? Or is it maybe something we have a little more control over than we think?
Well, the answer, or at least a really fascinating perspective, comes from a text called the Sutta, which literally means the discourse on the dart. And it uses this incredibly simple but, wow, really profound analogy to completely flip how we look at pain.
Okay, so imagine this. You're just walking along, minding your own business, and bam, you get struck by a dart. Ouch, right? This first dart, well, that's any painful thing that just happens to us. It could be a stubbed toe, a harsh word from someone, losing your keys, you name it. It's that initial, unavoidable sting that life just throws at you. Now, in the original Pali, this has a specific name. It's called Kayaka Vedana. Kayaka means related to the body, and Vedana means feeling or sensation. So this is a direct physical thing. It's just the raw data of pain that your body is sending to your brain. But here is where it gets really interesting. The parable says that most of us, right after we get hit by that first dart, we immediately turn around and shoot ourselves with a second one. And this second dart, that's our reaction to the first one. It's the story we spin about the pain. And yeah, you guessed it, this has its own name too. Cetasikā Vedana. Cetasikā means mental or of the mind. So this isn't the raw pain anymore. Oh no. This is the anger, the why me, the fear, the resentment that we pile right on top. This is the suffering we actually create inside our own heads. So let's unpack that distinction a little more. The texts are super clear that these are two totally separate experiences. And honestly, getting the difference between them, that's the whole key to this thing. So kayaka feeling is pretty straightforward, right? It's what your body feels, a burn, a chill, an ache. But Cetasikā feeling, that's what your mind feels. It's the joy you get when you think about someone you love, or that pit in your stomach when you remember a loss. One's a physical event, the other is purely a mental one. In fact, the texts even have a special word just for the pain of that second dart, domanasam. It translates to things like mental pain, grief, or dejection. But the most crucial part of its definition is that it's born of mind contact. Think about that. It's not caused directly by the outside world. It's generated from within. So if we're the ones shooting this second dart, what's the ammunition? What's the fuel that creates this whole extra layer of suffering? Well, the texts point to three main culprits. First up, we've got raja. This is usually translated as craving, passion, maybe even greed. It's that magnetic pull we feel towards things we find pleasant. So when a painful experience gets in the way of what we want, raja is what fuels our frustration. It's the voice that screams, "Why is this happening to me? I wanted things to be different." That right there is a second dart. And on the flip side of that coin, you've got dosa. This is aversion or hatred. It's that powerful urge to push away from unpleasant things. When that first dart hits, our gut reaction is often just anger and resistance. I hate this, make it stop. That fight, that resistance itself, is the second dart. And the third one is moha. This one's a little trickier. It means delusion or ignorance. And it's not about being stupid. It's about being confused about how things really are. It's the mental fog that tricks us into thinking that this pain is permanent, or that it says something terrible about who we are. And that confusion just ramps up our panic and our despair. So here's the bottom line. When we're swept away by this craving, this aversion, and this delusion, the texts say we experience Cetasikam Bidukam Domanasam, that very specific kind of mental pain and grief. Our reaction, the one fueled by these forces, is the second dart that we shoot at ourselves. Okay, so how do we stop doing this to ourselves? How can we learn to just feel the sting of that first dart without immediately reaching for the second one? Well, the good news is the texts lay out a pretty clear path. The Sutta draws this really stark contrast between two kinds of people. You have the uninstructed person. When they get hit by a painful feeling, they grieve, they complain, they get totally bewildered. They feel both the bodily pain and the mental pain. They get hit by 2 darts. But then there's the instructed person, someone who gets this principle. Their experience is completely different. They feel the bodily pain, but they just don't add the mental drama on top. They're only struck by 1 dart.
And this brings us to the most incredible takeaway. The text says it with this beautiful simplicity. So ekam vedanam vedayati, kayikam na chatasikam. He feels one feeling, bodily, not mental. This just opens up this profound possibility that we can actually experience life's inevitable pains without piling on that optional layer of suffering. We can learn to feel the first dart, see it for what it is, and then just choose not to reach for the second.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. Look back on a recent difficult moment, maybe a criticism you received, a moment of physical pain, a frustrating setback. That was the first dart. Now ask yourself, what was your second dart? Was it anger? Was it self-pity? Was it confusion? Because just seeing it, just recognizing it, that's the very first step to finally putting it down.